Welcome back to In the Wild. Tyson Steele was 30 years old when he moved to a small, plastic covered Quonset hut on a remote plot in Susitna Valley, Alaska, roughly 20 miles from the nearest neighbor in Skwetna. He had prepared for life off the grid with supplies including canned food, a rifle, a headlamp, and a cell phone that often struggled to work in the cold. He lived there with his chocolate Labrador, Phil, and sought solitude and independence through the harsh Alaskan winter. In the middle of the night on December 17th or 18th, 2019, a routine mistake changed his life. He placed a large piece of cardboard into his wood burning stove, causing sparks to ignite the roof of his cabin. The fire spread quickly, and he awoke to the sound of crackling flames. Steele ran outside, barely dressed in long underwear, a wool sweater, and boots. His dog, Phil, was trapped inside and did not survive. Alone in the freezing wilderness with minimal supplies, Steele faced immediate challenges. The snow was deep, the temperatures were well below freezing, and he had no reliable means of communication. He was forced to rely entirely on his resourcefulness and determination. The first hours were critical. He made sure to move away from the burning cabin, assessing the surrounding area for hazards, including propane tanks and leftover materials that could explode. For the first 2 nights, Steele dug a small snow cave near the ruins of his cabin to shelter from the wind and heavy snowfall. The cave was cramped and cold, but it provided temporary protection. During the day, he scavenged tarps, scrap lumber, and the remains of his wood stove to build a more stable shelter. This structure allowed him to maintain a small fire for warmth, to heat food, and to prevent the fire from going out in extreme cold. Steele's food supply consisted of a few canned goods that survived the fire. He rationed carefully, eating small portions of beans, peanut butter, and pineapple, knowing he could not hunt or forage in the deep snow. Drinking water came from melting snow, a constant and exhausting task that required steady attention. Every day, he melted snow over the fire, poured it into containers, and carefully avoided wasting any water. Each day, Steele focused on survival basics. He monitored his shelter for leaks or weaknesses, ensured the fire stayed lit, and adjusted his clothing and bedding to conserve body heat. He rested whenever possible to preserve energy. Exposure to sub zero temperatures made even simple tasks like chopping wood or tending the fire physically demanding. His routine was simple but vital: shelter, food, fire, water, and hope. Understanding that rescue was his only hope, Steele created a large SOS sign in the snow using ash from the burned cabin. Fresh snow often covered the letters, so he retraced them multiple times. From dawn to dusk, he scanned the skies for aircraft, listening for distant engines, hoping someone would see the sign. This became a daily ritual, a mix of patience, planning, and determination. As days passed, Steele managed to maintain a routine, alternating between tending his shelter, rationing food, melting snow, and marking the SOS. Even though he was alone, he stayed vigilant, monitoring the weather, snow accumulation, and his own physical condition. He took care to preserve body heat and avoid injury, knowing that even a small wound or frostbite could be life threatening. Meanwhile, his friends and family back in Utah became concerned after not hearing from him for weeks. They contacted authorities to request a welfare check, prompting the Alaska State Troopers to organize a search. The conditions in the valley were harsh, with snow covering much of the terrain, strong winds, and sub zero temperatures, making the search challenging. On January 9th, 2020, 23 days after the fire, a helicopter crew spotted Steele waving next to his SOS sign. He was weak, frostbitten, and exhausted, but alive. Rescuers described him as alert and coherent despite the extreme conditions. He was flown to Lake Hood in Anchorage, where he received a shower, warm clothing, and a meal. For the first time in over 3 weeks, he had real food, clean water, and human contact. Steele later reflected on the experience, acknowledging the loss of his dog and his cabin, but recognizing that careful planning, rationing, and resourcefulness had kept him alive. He planned to visit his family in Utah and recover before deciding whether to return to Alaska. Left alone in freezing temperatures with minimal shelter and food, he survived by creating shelter, managing a fire, rationing supplies, melting snow for water, and signaling for rescue. His calm decision making, patience, and resourcefulness illustrate what is possible even in one of the world's most extreme environments.